Sometimes there are consequences for political actions, including the Vietnam War. It was because of that war that the United States could no longer buy the Carl Gustaf submachine gun.
It was basically a submachine gun that was born out of the Vietnam protest era. Here we've got U.S. Special Forces that need a 9mm machine gun that's very rapid fire, very effective, something they can use for clandestine work, and they like the Swedish 45 a lot. It fires 750 rounds a minute when it's going full open. And there's nothing else like it out there on the market at the time. But 1967, Sweden cuts off that pipeline because we're into our necks in Vietnam, and they didn't like that. So we got cut off. And they went to Smith Wesson and basically said, they made a copy of it.
Everybody's entitled to mistakes, and that was Smith & Wesson's mistake. They thought they could build a Carl Gustaf cheaper at a time when nobody was buying submachine guns. It was not a success. No reason why it should have been.
Smith & Wesson has had, well, frankly, dismal luck with pistol caliber carbines and submachine guns. In 1940, they did the light rifle for the British government, but that's not what the British really wanted. What they wanted was a submachine gun. What they got was a semi-automatic carbine that was really expensive to make. And so Smith really stayed out of the long gun business for some time, but they decided to enter the submachine gun business at a time when really nobody was buying submachine guns anymore. And I think Smith was hoping that they'd get a big fat Army contract, and they simply didn't. And then with the introduction of the MP5, the Heckler & Koch submachine gun, which was dominant in its class for a couple of decades, it just spelled the end of the Model 76. And maybe Smith should never have gotten into that business.
The SEALs particularly needed a firearm in 9mm, a submachine gun that could provide firepower for close-in combat of the type that the SEALs would frequently encounter in Vietnam. And very frequently, the SEALs were called on to engage in clandestine operations in Vietnam. And so for this, they didn't want to be armed with an American-made firearm firing one of the American-made calibers like .45. They sought instead to be armed with a firearm in a caliber that gave them some plausible deniability. 9mm worked very conveniently for this. And so U.S. Navy SEALs reached out for and began using the Carl Gustaf M45 submachine gun, a firearm that we sometimes refer to as the Swedish K. And this is a firearm that is used quite regularly. So regularly, in fact, that the United States is placing more and more orders from the Carl Gustaf factory. In other words, we're ordering more and more M45 submachine guns from Sweden as time is going by. But then in 1966, over Sweden's opposition to our policies in Southeast Asia, an export ban was placed into effect. And this ban prohibited the sale of Swedish K submachine guns to the United States. The United States then quickly turned to Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson was already involved in designing firearms, some of which were being used by the U.S. military, some of them even for clandestine purposes. And so Smith & Wesson effectively just copied the Carl Gustaf M45 9mm submachine gun and created, in 1967, their M76 submachine gun. The NFA shooting community in the U.S. gobbles up the Smith & Wesson 76 pretty quickly because it's made by Smith & Wesson. It's a paragon, a leader in fine quality production. It shoots the cheap and readily available 9mm cartridge, and it's dependable. At the time, it was also an affordable firearm. At a time when the NFA community was quite small, it was really a very small fraternity house of people, almost all of whom knew each other. There is a version called the MK760, which is a copy of the Smith & Wesson Model 76, which of course was a copy of the Carl Gustaf M45 Swedish K. But this MK760 provides an even more affordable option for anyone who is a qualified NFA buyer who might want to own something like a Smith 76. So if you ever run across one and you're qualified to purchase and own NFA and you live in a state where you're allowed to do so, run, don't walk, buy it as quickly as possible, because it's one of the finest 9mm submachine guns in that waning era of the direct blowback open bolt 9mm submachine gun. And to spend the big money that it requires to own a Smith 76 today is completely worth it, because you can't go wrong. This is one of the greatest firearms made by one of America's great firearms makers.
Of course, the Smith & Wesson 76 is a fully automatic firearm and subject to the National Firearms Act, but there are some out there for wealthy collectors. That's all the time that we have for this week. If you like this show and you're not an NRA member, you need to join right now. Go to AmericanRifleman.org. I'm Mark Keefe, and I'll see you next week right here on American Rifleman Television.